This week on Who Deserves to Be Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame podcast, we look at the case for putting the Smiths into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. February is normally the month when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame puts out its lists of nominees for induction. And normally, I immediately would go over them when they happen. However, I will be away on business for most of the month of February in London, England, and thus away from my podcasting equipment, especially with some really bad hotel Wi-Fi. So I won't be able to talk about the brand new nominees, should they come out in February, until my next very fresh episode, which will drop on February 27th, as I tend to record these a few days before I post them. In the meantime, though, I have pre-recorded this episode and a few more to cover for the month of February, and I will talk about who the Hall finally decided to put on their consideration list on the episode, which drops on the 27th, provided that list comes out before then, sometime in February. In the meantime, here's the episode that I recorded in January to be played in February while I'm away overseas. This week, we look at the case for putting the Manchester, England alternative rock icons, the Smiths, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. As we always do every week, to the tale of the tape we go. During the Smiths' heyday, they released 4 studio albums, 1 live album, 11 compilation albums, and 3 EPs. Of those, only 1987's final album, Strange Ways, Here We Come, went to the top 40 in America, resting finally at number 29. The other studio albums, for the record, were 1984's self-titled debut, 1985's Meat is Murder, and 1986's The Queen is Dead. In the United Kingdom, it was a completely different story, with all of their studio albums hitting number 1, along with their 1988 live album, Rank, and their 1992 compilation album, Best One. The Smiths also released 24 singles. Of those, only 1985's iconic single, How Soon Is Now, made it into the top 40 in America, topping out at number 36, not on the pop chart, but on the dance chart. Meanwhile, in the UK, 20 of their songs hit the top 40. Of those 20, 1 hit number 25, 1 hit number 16, 1 hit number 8, 1 hit number 3, 2 hit number 2, and 14 of them hit number 1. As far as critical acclaim and influence goes, well, Rolling Stone magazine put all 4 of the group's studio albums onto their 500 greatest albums of all time list. They've also been called one of the 10 most influential British artists of all time. They've influenced alternative and Britpop groups like Blur, Oasis, Suede, and, surprisingly, Rick Astley. In fact, co-founder Johnny Marr gave Oasis guitarist Noel Gallagher one of his guitars and also helped to mentor him as Oasis was just starting out. And it is that guitar that Noel is playing in the music video for the group's iconic song Wonderwall. Marr probably also understood what Oasis was going through with the strained relationship of the Gallagher brothers, as the Smiths had broken up because of the strained relationship between Johnny Marr and their polarizing genius of a lead singer, Morrissey. That resume is more than a lot of groups that are already in the Hall of Fame. Plus, they did it as indie artists, not as regular big-time record label artists. So, what is keeping this group out? After all, they've been eligible for the Hall since 2009 and have been nominated before in 2015 and 2016, but they've been snubbed ever since. One conspiracy theory concerns Morrissey, whose political views are, well, let's be nice about it and just say controversial. If you don't know what they are, Google them. There's way too many to discuss here. Some of those views, I'm sure, have alienated more than a few of the Hall voters, which is probably hindering their chances. Otherwise, there's really no reason why it's taken this long for the Smiths to be inducted. After all, if the voters don't like Morrissey and are going to hold that against the group, well, there's still Johnny Marr to like, as he is extremely respected in the music industry and does a lot of session work for a lot of different artists from different genres. So Morrissey's political views should not keep the group out, because honestly, the Smiths absolutely deserve to be inducted, and that induction is long overdue. And that is it for who deserves to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We also invite you to check out our other podcast, the Music History Today podcast, where we go over what happened on that date in music history. That podcast drops daily, including weekends, on this channel that you're either watching or listening to this podcast on. We also have the Music History In-Depth podcast, where we go more in-depth into the events that happened for that week in music history. And that podcast posts every Tuesday on this channel that you're either watching or listening to this podcast on. Thank you very, very much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube or Spotify.